One of my favorites, Monica Crowley, is with us. She's a former Assistant Treasury Secretary. My gosh, Monica, how they trashed that Treasury. They are just looting it like crazy. Anyway, I saw, Monica, you post something this morning, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, good morning, Glenn. Great to be with you as always. Yeah, America's waking up to a real tragedy this morning. The Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore Harbor, it's a massive span. And for those of us who live in the Northeast, Glenn, I can tell you I have crossed that bridge many a time, going from New York to Washington and back, right? It is a major, major artery in the Northeast. And at about 1:30 a.m. Eastern time this morning, a cargo ship was approaching the bridge. And the video that I posted, which is now everywhere on social media, shows
we're watching it right now.
Yes, and it's all over TV as well. It is a massive cargo ship, and it's under a Singapore flag. So the ship itself is registered in Singapore, and you can see in the video that it approaches the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and it loses power, Glenn, twice. Not once, but twice in the moments leading up to its approach to the bridge.
Oh, my gosh.
And so, you can see in the video, it loses power twice. It regains power, but by that moment, Glenn, it's too late, and they can't steer away from one of the massive pilings supporting the bridge, and the cargo ship goes right into the piling, and the entire bridge collapses like a house of cards, just folds in on itself right into Baltimore Harbor.
You know, I noticed, because I watched this video a couple of times after you posted it, and I mean, I couldn't believe it was like toothpicks falling apart. When you first start watching it, you'll see the traffic is pretty steady on the bridge. And thank God, right at the time that it collapses, not a lot of cars, if any, were on the bridge. Do we know if there were cars on the bridge?
Well, thankfully, I mean, if there's any silver lining in this horror show, Glenn, it is 1:30 in the morning, so there was relatively light traffic, and you can see headlights of cars going both ways. And, you know, the moment that the cargo ship hits the bridge, it looks like very few cars, if any, are on the bridge. What we're hearing this morning, pardon me, what we're hearing is that 2 people have already been rescued. God bless. There are at least 7 people missing that we know about. So there is a very active search and rescue going on. The Coast Guard is out there. The National Transportation Safety Board is on site. The Navy is there. Navy divers are in the water and have been now for hours. So we hope and pray that any victims who fell into the water in their automobiles, in their trucks. There's at least one semi that we know of that collapsed into the water with the bridge, Glenn. So we hope and pray that all of these people who were part of this unfortunate accident, and at least now it does look like an accident, and we'll wait for the investigation, but we hope and pray that everybody will be rescued and will be okay.
So, Monica, do we know anything about the ship? Because the first thought is, because the power goes out, then it comes back on, and the poor captain, man, you can see him just trying to turn that ship as fast as he can when the power's on. Then it goes out again. Do we know? My first thought was, is this some sort of some sort of an attack on electronics? Has anybody else thought of that, or is it just me and my sick, twisted paranoia, I guess?
Well, I think that too, Glenn, and we will have to wait for a thorough investigation here in a lot of different areas. There was one report that I saw this morning that indicated that the crew, and apparently there was one pilot and 2 captains on board, which, and of course, an additional crew, which you would expect for a vessel of this size and magnitude under an international flag, again, Singapore. And there is one report this morning that indicates that the crew alerted the Maryland Department of Transportation when they were leaving the port that they had lost control of the vessel. So, and again, I don't know how reliable this report is, but it's up on the New York Post website this morning. So again, I don't know if that report has been vetted, but most of these vessels now are under electronic control, not unlike some of our voting systems, and might very well be open to hacking by nefarious players here. So again, we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, and accidents unfortunately do happen.
Right. And I hope that's the case, but with all the cyber terror that is predicted, I know we're all on high alert for that. Monica, thank you so much for reporting and calling in. I appreciate it. God bless.
It's my great pleasure, Glenn. Thank you.
So we have an update on the bridge collapse, the Fort McHenry Bridge, a very important bridge and port in Baltimore. Here's the update that is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, apparently the ship was able to issue a mayday and say they were experiencing a power issue. And this enabled transportation officials to halt traffic over the bridge at the last second. I mean, if you watch the footage, you can see the cars crossing the bridge as normal up until the very last second, and all of a sudden they just stop. And you just kind of assumed it was such a break in traffic, but apparently they knew something was wrong and were able to stop it. I mean, they must have saved dozens of lives by doing that. So that's an incredible part of the story.
Yeah, these guys are heroes. If you're watching the Blaze right now, we're showing you the bridge collapse. It is absolutely unbelievable. And you can see how the boat is trying to turn as sharply as they can. And then the lights come back on. They try to steer it away, and then it goes out at the second time, and it's just too late, and the whole thing collapses. It's remarkable. Jeez. And that port is closed. I'm not saying this is by any stretch of the imagination, other than it reminds me of the cyber attack on, I think it was a Navy ship, wasn't it? That was in the South China Sea. I'm pulling this. I'm sorry. I have CRC. Can't remember crap. But it was in the South China Sea, and it lost control. And it made a circle and then rammed right into a oil tanker, clearly controlled by somebody else. I'm not saying that's what this is. This is probably just mechanical error. But we have to start thinking about those kinds of things now because they're all possible.